Okay, go slightly behind the schedule. We are going to start our roundtable this afternoon. So really great honor for us to have guests such as Speaker of the Parliament of Latvia and 3 more parliamentarians, Ambassador and Deputy Head of Mission, and also staff of the Office of Speaker. Modality of the meeting today is as follows. First of all, Madam Speaker will deliver some 10 minutes speech, and then followed by, since roundtable, we have more free discussion about Latvia, European Union, and Korea. How to understand better Latvia and European integration, together with bilateral relations with Korea and Latvia. That will be our main topic today. Floor is yours, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Professor. Dear students, dear professors, I'm very happy to be here today and to meet you, and I'd like to thank you, all of you, for your interest in the issue, for meeting me and parliamentarians, all our delegation from Latvia. Let me introduce my delegation. Mr. Richard Kols is a very important politician. He's chairman of Foreign Affairs Committee. It's one of the most important committees in our parliament. And if we travel together with him to Korea, it's first time in this parliament. It means that it's a really important visit. Mr. Gatis Eglītis is a very important politician as well. He is vice chairman of European Affairs Committee. You see, Foreign Affairs Committee and European Affairs Committee. Well, it means there will be a really interesting discussion on international affairs, I hope. Which is very important that Mr. Gatis Eglītis is a member of a friendship group with Korean Parliament as well. My third colleague, Mr. Jānis Lucāns, is even more important politician than my 2 colleagues. He is not only a politician, but professor as well. He impressed me this morning when he said that he has been a professor about 40 years.
More than 40.
More than 40. And politician about...
Only 10.
Well, there is still room for excellence to go forward. Madame Gunter Rinke is chief of my office. Madame Anda Capelaka, Foreign Affairs advisor. Mr. Just from flags, sorry. Zigmārs Kritkovskis is chief of our protocol. Mr. Pēters Podrinskis and His Excellency Pēters Vaivars, our ambassador, they represent Latvian embassy in Korea. Let me thank once more for your interest, for your coming. I was very surprised to meet one student from Lithuania, but unfortunately no one from Latvia. I can't explain it because your colleague or president of university told me, he revealed a secret that there are 2 Latvians in this university. Unfortunately, no one here. Well, we have come here early morning, a little bit sleepy from flight, but I'm very inspired. It's my first time in Korea. We have met for lunch 2 politicians, representatives of friendship group from Korean parliament. And we discussed some politics, we discussed upcoming parliamentary elections, we discussed how to strengthen trade, how to strengthen political ties between the both parliaments. Actually, I'm very much looking forward to find Korea for myself, to reveal Korea for myself. Some of my colleagues are here for the first time, like me, some for the second time. But my aim is to make such exchanges more frequent. Last year, we welcomed a delegation from Korean Parliament, Speaker of Parliament and politicians, and we had really inspiring meetings, inspiring conversations, inspiring talks. Well, but it was a very interesting moment during this visit. It came very suddenly. I met your speaker nearby our parliament, and then there was a really big group from Korea, tourists, who came with the direct flight, with chartered flight, and it was such a coincidence. But I would like you to see smiles of people. It was all unexpected, and I very much hope such meetings, unexpected meetings, could come more than once a year. More than once a year. Your university is very well known in Latvia, and it's one of a few places in Asia where the Baltic studies and the Latvian language training are offered. We value it a lot. I value it a lot. Language is not only a means of communication, it defines us as a personality, as a representative of some community, as a representative of nation. I'm a former journalist. I've been in journalism for about 16 years. It means that Latvian language is my working tool, my mean of communication. It's a way how to explain people what's really going on. And power of language is really impressive, but to my mind today undervalued. Let's change it. Well, and I'd like to say a couple of words about our parliamentary dialogue. It's active, but we could do more, I'd like to say. We have our friendship group. We have in our parliament friendship group with Korean parliament since 2006. It means there's fundament on which to build upon. Well, and some words about Latvia. Sorry, Lithuanian student, Latvia and Lithuania, we call ourselves sister nations, sister countries. We are situated very close. Our languages are, they come from one Indo-European languages branch, and they are Baltic languages, Baltic. The only two Baltic languages in the world. Lithuanian is the oldest one. The Latvian language is more modern. Well, and Latvia for centuries has been part of Northern European cultural area, just as our two neighbors, Lithuania, which I mentioned, and Estonia, a third Baltic country. The Republic of Latvia was established 100 years ago, approximately 100 years ago. In 2018, we celebrated centenary of our statehood. Well, our nation has suffered, and we had been occupied for 50 years. We know how it is to move through different hardships, to live without statehood, and we understand the other nations as well. But celebrating centenary of our statehood, we have done a lot. We filled in our minds all blank spaces about our history, which was robbed from us. We strengthened our identity, our sense of belonging to our nation, our sense of belonging to our state. Well, and year 1919, more than 100 years ago, was significant for both the Latvian and both Korean people. In Seoul on 1st of March 1919, a nationwide independence march with Korean national flags was held, and the Declaration of Independence was read. And year 1919 was crucial in the Latvian independence war, when territory of our country was liberated. And you see, we are so distant countries, but there are parallels which draws close. Through 1920s and 1930s, Latvia's culture and economy boomed. In 1940, my country was occupied by the Soviet Union, and then came the Nazi occupation. Then, for almost 50 years, half a century, Latvia remained under Soviet occupation rule. Last summer, we celebrated the 30th anniversary of the Baltic Way. Can you imagine it? It was a human chain. People just came on roads, on streets, and held each other's hands, demanding freedom. And this Baltic Way, it was a very successful event, and it was widely covered in all mass media. We succeed. We regained our independence. We restored our independence. I'd like to say that three of us, Latvia, Lithuania, and I'd like to say Estonia as well, we are victorious nations. We founded our countries, and after so long a period of occupation, we gained our freedom. Yes, we have gone through dark times, through occupation times, but we are victorious nations. Well, I'd like to give some floor for my colleagues as well. Mr. Richard Holmes.
Thank you.
International affairs, Zelegatis English, very quick economics, and Jānis Lucāns, Baltic Assembly.
Yes.
Our cooperation within platform of Baltic states, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Hello, students, other members of the university staff as well, professors, doctors. As I was introduced, so I'm the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Parliament of the Republic of Latvia. And I'm being asked to give us some insights into the security and defense challenges in our region and in Latvia, the relations with the EU, with the transatlantic relations as well. And I would like to start as it's been, throughout our, so far it's not been very long visit, it's been only a few hours, but we already come on one common understanding. We share a lot in common when it comes to Korea and when it comes to Latvia, from the history point of view, from geopolitical, regional challenges, and etc. And this said, when it comes to security, defense, and international affairs, I think it's already a label that we speak about Baltic states as a whole. Very rarely we expose ourselves individually when it comes to international affairs. We speak in one voice, we speak loud and clear, so therefore we are more heard on international arena. But of course, I mean, even though, as Madam Speaker said, that we have the sister country, Lithuania, but even among Baltic states, we do have our challenges and disputes. But nevertheless, when it comes to security, defense, and international affairs, we're very much in one line. And this said, I mean, it's a very broad topic, security and defense. I mean, I will not go and try to cover the whole history. So I will try to focus for the past decade or so, try to give you in a nutshell what has happened and where we stand right now. So for Latvia, when it comes to international affairs, number one priority is our independence, irreversibility. That is number one priority for us. Then comes, to guarantee that priority, security and defense. And then rest, follows economic affairs, prosperity, and etc. But number one is to guarantee our independence, irreversibility. And this said, of course, when we regain our independence in the 1990, so this year marks the 30th anniversary. First thing, it was already understood by any politician, any people living in Latvia, that our only direction is much deeper integration into the Western institutions and architecture. So this said, I think we did a great job in a very short time period. It took 7 years for us to become full-fledged members of NATO and European Union. And of course, it's somewhat, I mean, there's been stumbling blocks being put in our way, on our roads to this membership, both either in the EU and NATO. But we received and were accepted in 2004, altogether, all three Baltic states. As I said, whenever you talk about Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, all the major events, you could see them all together. This said, of course, the next question is, where are we going to head further? Well, the further is deeper integration in the EU. So last year it marked 50th anniversary since we are the members, both of the NATO and EU. We can actually look back with, I would say we can keep our heads up proudly of what we have achieved. Because within these 15 years, our GDP has tripled. So that is quite an achievement already. When it comes to security, well, and defense, of course everybody wants to have a friendly, neighborly relations, right? That's a natural, I think, law. But unfortunately, we live in a region where considerably large power, I will not name superpower, as it would like to call itself, it's the Russian Federation and their activities. So of course for them, it took a lot of transformation themselves in the 90s. But then in 2000, Vladimir Putin came to power. Of course, everybody at first was, nobody knew this guy. Came out from nowhere. First years were okay, cooperating, establishing different relationships, even having the NATO-Russia format of cooperation. But then came the year 2009, the Russian attack on Georgia, occupying their territories, and the South Ossetia region. And that was already a warning that this might be, and the rhetoric coming from Russian Federation that the Baltic states, the former Soviet countries are actually their rightful sphere of influence. That's their natural habitat, and they should be the ones to decide what can be or cannot be done in these regions. And that escalated further down with, consequently, in 2014, when Russia illegally annexed independent countries' territory, Crimea, Crimean Peninsula. And that was not only, for us, of course, it was a shock that, you live in 21st century, and Latvia is one of the countries that strongly stands for rules-based international order, respect for human rights, and respect for agreements that has been signed in the past as well. But the modus operandi of the Russian Federation and the current leadership is nothing of that. It's on the contrary. Any agreement can just be interpreted just a piece of paper. And we have a saying in Latvia that paper can hold everything, But the thing is, the most important thing is, if there isn't a bilateral agreement or multilateral, you abide by this agreement and you respect those terms. So this said, of course, I cannot cover the whole details of when it comes to security and defense. I'm just going in these big chunks. So there followed a very crucial NATO summit decisions, starting from Wales to Warsaw, in Brussels, and the latest one, the NATO Leadership Summit in London, all of whom came out with a very strong decisions that actually was for a benefit for our region, strengthening security. In 2014-15, the decision to bring more NATO member states into the Baltic region, being present. So this said, the decision was made to establish the battle group in the Baltic states. So in Latvia currently, battle group is overseen or run by Canada. In Estonia, it's United Kingdom, and in Lithuania, it's Germany. So this said, of course, a lot of things have been still further implemented. Of course, we know that 2016 also brought some turbulence in international politics, particularly in relations with NATO, as the current US administration, the rhetoric that was coming out. Of course, there was a lot of skepticism at first and worries that, this is going to be a disaster and so on. But on the contrary, from the Baltic states' viewpoint, actually the commitment from the US is much stronger. It's delivering. One thing is we can label nowadays this new trend, the Twitter politik, yes, at some point. But nevertheless, what we have seen that the Congress support is rock solid. The understanding of the issues and challenges that we face when it comes to security and defense in our region is 100% on the same page on a capital. So this said, of course, we are strengthening our deterrence because none of the activities that NATO is conducting in our region, either as military exercises and so on, are in no way in the nature of being offensive military exercises. All of them, starting from the first to the last one, is mainly to increase our capabilities when it comes to deterrence, defense. So none of them is offensive. On the contrary, Russia constantly, yes, I know, constantly is conducting military exercises next to our border with a totally opposite intentions on developing the capabilities of offensive activities. But this said, of course, I have Ambassador already gave me a note, a red card. I will not call it yellow. Yellow.
Not yet crystal red line.
But of course, for Latvia, I mean, I didn't touch upon the European affairs. That's another block, a big chunk. But for us, it's very important to keep very strong transatlantic relations. Because 75 years, the peace and stability in Europe is because of this strong transatlantic bond. And then right now we have to do everything that is in our power to keep these relations healthy and try to avoid any unnecessary misunderstandings that might happen and actually are happening as we speak as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry,
That's fully understandable, since in terms of security issue, we know that the famous clause number 5 of NATO clearly say that in any member state being attacked, automatically engaged.
It's the Musketeers principle.
Yeah.
One for all for all.
For everybody.
It's also true that under this troubling situation, this G2 of the competition, also in terms of Baltic states, I see that German, Russian, and US and even Chinese influence is increasing. Therefore, how to balance, make balance in that particular region is really a concern for us. No? Because in the Korean Peninsula, it's very difficult how big powers as a players, how to handle these issues is a big problem for us too. Therefore, but I'm not sure, but therefore you maintain such clear anti-Russian position.
It's not
In terms of,
anti-Russian.
in
It's
terms
not
of
an
security.
anti-Russian. It's not anti-Russian. I mean, well, I know that is something that is being tried from Russia's side to label Baltic countries as Russophobic countries. That is something that rhetoric they're using. But I mean, look back in history. I mean, we just recently marked the benchmark where we actually enjoying the freedom longer than we were occupied. Just recently.
But Your Honor, it is also true that in Latvia there are a sizable portion of population Russian, ethnic Russian, 26%.
No. Again, misinformation.
No, it is
Ethnic Russians are 10%.
10%.
Yes,
Then
Russian speaking is around
26.
26, 27, and that's a huge difference because Russian speaking might include Belarusians, Ukrainians that not necessarily
Also,
support
biggest
Kremlin's
political
policies.
party
Sorry?
supported by biggest political party supported by Russophile. That is true.
Well, and that party has been supported by Kremlin. Okay, here you are.
Therefore, 2 years ago, when I was in Riga to attending the conference I mentioned earlier, my suggestion as an outsider, yes, in terms of security, more to the west, but in terms of economy, better to take practical position, more relation with Russia. Why not? Yeah, that was my.
I have a counter argument to that.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, EU has the sanctions on Russia
Yeah.
because of Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine, and Crimea. Those sanctions are tailor-made. Those are not against Russian Federation as a whole. Those are individuals, companies, and etc. In the meantime, of course, Russia said we will respond with, counter sanctions, but they're sanctioning the whole sectors, the countries, and all together. So what happened was, of course, we have the trade balance as well with Russia, but that accounts 10%, 10% of the whole volume. What we have done for the past 3 years was extensively diversify our markets, export markets. And we have reduced this dependency on the Russian market with the new markets. Either it's China, either it's Korea as well. And that is something. So therefore, it's overstated the importance of Russian economy The only one, and we can see what Russia is using, is the energy as a political tool of influencing. The recent case of Belarus, suddenly, you know, Lukashenko is becoming pretty resistant to Putin's plans. They cut the oil supply.
So more
So that is-
diversify economy.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Diversify our energy supplies. Not to become dependent only on Russian gas.
right. Do you have an intention to import American shale gas?
Well, we do. I mean, it's already happening in Lithuania. There is an LNG, and we are diversifying. I mean, for the past 4 years, we have done a lot to have.
So you are
So avoid
you're
any-
against Nord Stream 2?
Yes, of course, because it's purely political project, nothing of an economic. Because there's already a Nord Stream 1, and it's only running on half of its capacity. Do try to convince me, even economic reasons, to open another pipeline. Sorry, I have to.
Yes, I will be very brief to allow also maybe some questions from students and stuff. Yes, myself, I've also studied foreign studies. I've studied in Johns Hopkins University in Washington School of Advanced International Studies. SICS, and also in Vienna Diplomatic Academy. So I know a little bit how you feel. So my profile, I'm economist by training, and also in this visit, I think my primary interest is to learn more about sort of Korean experience in developing a world-class economy in a short span of time, basically in the last 50 years. South Korea has gone from a rather poor country to top 20 economies in the world. So I think that's very impressive, and that is something that, of course, the Baltic states we are trying to emulate as well. And then I think in these last 30 years we have achieved a lot. Our incomes have grown considerably. If you look now, I think South Korea is somewhere around $40,000 US purchasing power parity. Latvia, Baltics is around 30, a bit more. So, but it's been a very steep increase. But still, we have a lot to learn from South Korea in terms of developing industries, startups, innovation. South Korea is #1 in terms of innovations in the world. So I think, and also in terms of investment, a lot of outward investment from South Korea to the world. So we hope some of that investment may also trickle to the Baltic states. You mentioned LNG. Actually, there was a big South Korean company, Kogas. They were exploring possibilities for developing an LNG infrastructure in our country, so we hope that materializes at some point, and that would be crucial to cut our dependence on Russian gas. So we would have a new entry point for alternative gas supplies, for instance from US, Norway, Qatar, or so. So I think I will stop here to allow more.
Then we have one economist.
Oh, very good.
You may respond. How to promote?
Actually, when President Moon Hee-sang visited Latvia, actually I have opportunity to discuss with his advisor in order to prepare his visit to Latvia. And at that time, I didn't expect that we will receive the visit of Latvian speaker, the Speaker of the State Assembly in Korea and in our university. So in that much, we are honored to have you here. And I think I was 14 years old at the time. One day I saw the television, and the television emission showed that in Baltic countries, the people lined up from Estonia to Lithuania in order to express their willingness to be independent from the Soviet Union. And that was my first experience with the Baltic country, I mean Latvia. That was 1989, 1990, I think. And whenever we provide a lecture to students on the European Union and EU enlargement, I used to show that picture to students, how the Central and Eastern European countries became independent from the Soviet bloc, and then they have some transition from the planned economy to market economies. And what is particular for the Latvia, including the Baltic country, including Latvia, is they went through economic crisis in 2008 and 2009, and that crisis extremely severe. So the three Baltic countries have, at that time, the economic growth rate was minus 15% for one single year.
20 to 25%.
Yeah, that's something unprecedented among the developed countries. And what is particular for Latvia is they went through all domestic reform in order to overcome that economic crisis. And they, as far as you know, they were just before adopting the euro. And instead of devaluating your currency, you just stick to the fixed exchange rate vis-a-vis the euro, and then finally you overcome all the crises and became a full-fledged member of the euro area in 2015. So your experience provides us a good lesson how one country join the supranational entities such as European Union, and then all conduct all domestic reform, and finally achieving a high growth rate in a short period of time. When we look at the Korea-Latvian relation, we found that there is, as far as I know, there's no Korean investment in Latvia. And one of the reasons is I think we don't have a historical common experience. We have common experience, but we are far from each other in terms of geographic location. So I think it's the main reason. And what I want to propose is we need to exchange more people, either tourists, either students. Once we get acquainted with each other, probably there will be more opportunity to find trade and investment opportunity. So what I'm proposing is just the Madam Speaker proposed we have to increase the student exchange and also the tourist exchange as well.
Okay, you are on a good chance. You can add something there because you're 30 years of professor at the university.
Dear students and dear colleagues, professors, indeed, I'm very happy and at the same time very thankful to you that you came to this discussion. I don't know how the study process is organized in Korea, in your university, but I know that during the January in Latvia it's very difficult to collect students for such discussions because traditionally we have the examination session.
Actually, this is vacation period.
Okay. As I already told, I'm a university professor for more than 40 years, but in state level politics I'm only 10 years, since 2010. But practically from the first months of my presence in the national politics, I understand that it's if you would like to be a serious politician, you need to work also on international agenda, not only on the national but also on international. And by coincidence, my way in this international politics goes through cooperation of 3 Baltic countries. Since 2011, I'm a member of Baltic Assembly, and since 2014, I'm head of Latvian delegation to Baltic Assembly. Baltic Assembly is inter-parliamentary organization of all 3 Baltic countries, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Every country in this organization is represented by approximately 15 members of the parliament, national parliaments, and Baltic Assembly is working like a parliament on the commission basis. There are 5 committees in Baltic Assembly: Committee on Defense and Security, Committee on Economic, Committee on Education and Culture and Research, Committee on the Healthcare, and so. Mr. Richard Scholes already said that for Baltic countries the main issue is defense, main priority is issue of defense and security. And in nowadays it includes also cybersecurity, our view on the cyber warfare of today's situation, and all these very difficult issues. If we are speaking about situation in Europe and in European Union, we have big countries like Germany, like Spain, like Italy, but we have small countries like 3 Baltic countries, like Benelux countries, it's Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg. Also Nordic countries are not so big countries, and there is tradition in Europe that those small countries to become more influential, they are organizing interparliamentary organizations to speak in common voice with other players in the international arena. And not only these small countries are organizing those interparliamentary organizations, but those interparliamentary organizations also are cooperating and working together. For example, Baltic Assembly has very good relations and very close cooperation with Nordic Council, the organization of 5 Nordic countries, with Benelux Parliamentary Assembly, with Guam Parliamentary Assembly. Guam, it's Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova, and Azerbaijan. It's also from former Soviet republics, and with some other organizations. Before this meeting, we have some discussion between professors here, and in that meeting, I already mentioned that, for example, there exists in Europe Black Sea Economic Cooperation Parliamentary Assembly, which unites all states around the Black Sea. The same is Mediterranean Parliamentary Assemblies, all the states which are around the Mediterranean Sea. And a very important issue in Europe, in Europe is issue of environment. It includes how we are looking on microplastics pollution and other types of pollution. And those problems for all European seas are approximately the same. And therefore, it's very important to also to make those contacts, to look for common decisions. And one of such formats in which parliamentarians also are discussing those environmental issues is European Maritime Day. It happens every year during the month of May, and every year in some other country. And those forms of cooperation are quite many. If we are speaking about the Baltic countries and about achievements of Baltic Assembly, for example, if we are speaking about higher education, during the last year, all 3 Baltic countries made a decision and made agreement that we have common higher education area. It means that, for example, if you are graduated from some university in Lithuania, your diploma, without any special recognitions, is applicable in Latvia and in Estonia. The same rule and procedure now is also in Benelux countries. And now, this year, we started discussions between Baltic countries, and 3 Baltic countries and 3 Benelux countries, to make some common higher education environment for 6 countries. And we started also discussion, preliminary discussions on that topic with Nordic countries. And it means 5, it's 11 countries, practically it's 1/3 of Europe. And so this is some model how those interparliamentary organizations are operating. The same we are doing in healthcare sector. For example, for small countries to buy vaccines, it's quite expensive. But three Baltic countries joined, and we are making common procurements of medicines, and we are economizing money, but by such a way. And this is also a possibility how parliamentarians can operate on economic environment, not only on political environment, but also on economic environment. And so I have told about such examples a lot, but the Baltic Assembly has its homepage, of course, and the name of homepage on internet is baltassam.org, and if you would like to get more information, you can go there and obtain our dreams, our successes, our results, and everything that relates to Baltic Assembly. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So alone might be small, but together you can express some voices even in European dimension. Yeah? That's good.
Well, it's also, one is the Baltic Assembly, which is the oldest one, former, but the one another that we are actively participating is called the NBA, which is the Nordic 5.
Very, very important.
And it's both government level, parliament level, even civil society as well. Therefore, when it comes to EU decision making, we know how, I have to say, EU is right now pretty fragmented. When it comes to coming up with common either defense, security, or foreign policy. There are different players. There's influence from outside as well, and so therefore, right now we have the new European Parliament. We have the new European Commission. I mean, for me, it's too soon to say how successful will be the new European Commission, but there are high expectations. There's also ahead of us is the multi-annual financial framework as well, the 7-year budget. I think that's going to be a hard nut for everyone to negotiate and to have a balanced approach. And so overall, I think, well, on top of that is Brexit. I mean, it's 31st of January, it's been already 1 week in the new year. I haven't heard anything. So it's something that we live in very turbulent times. And I mean, I do support, even within the EU, regional cooperation. We have the Benelux countries, we have the Nordic countries, we have also Mediterranean countries, we have the Visegrad, the V4, we also have the 17+1, which is with China. But I mean, the most important thing is that EU is operating on whereas the competencies are very strictly enshrined in the treaties. What is the Brussels centralized responsibility, and what is the member state exclusive competencies as well. But of course, it's not easy to reach a consensus when it comes to, let's say, okay, fine example, to recognize Jerusalem as a capital for Israel, right? You will never ever get a consensus in Europe on that. But we also have the consensus when it comes to foreign trade. But in that regard, I mean, I do welcome all the free trade agreements that Europe is currently negotiating and already has negotiated. Latvia was the first to ratify the CETA, the Canada-EU Free Trade Agreement. Because for Latvia, for the size of our country, I mean, the free trade format is the way actually to discover new markets, enter new markets, because I cannot imagine for us, for example, to negotiate for us favorable trade agreement with Korea, for example. I don't think we're going to manage that. But when it comes to, when the EU is negotiating with Korea, I think, yes, okay, there's a different level of leverage.
That applies also to us. We want more liberal way of doing business.
But I understand it will be revised, the agreement, revised and modernized.
Korea doesn't want protectionism.
Nobody wants, but that is the, the big powers are actually moving ahead.
Okay.
Traffic.
Can you may add something?
Well, I just want to mention just a small point about the for the new generation? Well, we can expand the market between two countries for the, older generation, such as the tourism market for the between two countries. But I think sometimes I feel that new generation, they may feel the more, they may know each other more than us. So,
You're still young.
yeah, but yes. But I think, yes, we have to make the kind of international legal infrastructure for the exchanges of young people.
Mobility.
Yeah, mobility. We have many dimensions for the purpose. Yeah. Yes, there is one example. One of my students is Korean. She decided to study in Lithuania, and then she sent me an email in Lithuania. Oh, professor, I decided to stay one more semester in Latvia. But she is not a specialist in Lithuania or Latvia, in the Baltic country. She just wanted to stay there, and she has a kind of interesting point in the area. That is one example for the exchanges of the young generation. So if we receive the more Latvian students in Korea, or if we can send more Korean students in Latvia, then I think that should be the first step for the...
Okay, related to your opinion, we have one good example here, Dr. Sojin Seok, who taught Korean in University of Latvia for years. So he can add something.
Labdien, jūs esat godātie deputātes un vieši no Latvijas. Man būtu liels prieks un gods, ka varu runāt pastāst par Korejas studijām Latvijā, latviešu valodā. Your Excellencies, dear delegate and guests from Latvia, it's my great pleasure and honor to be able to speak about Korean studies in Latvia. I have worked at University of Latvia since I have been working in Baltic states from 1997, but recently from 2014 till 2019 till this spring, I worked at University of Latvia as a visiting professor from Korea Foundation, and at this moment I'm working as a senior researcher at the Center for Critical Language Education, which means we do promotion about critical languages, less commonly taught languages in Korea, and in larger perspective, Latvian is also included in our project. So I'm going to do my best to make the good promotion of Latvian language and education in Korea for Korean students. Korean Studies is offered as a major program at Asian Studies Department of the University of Latvia since 2018. Approximately the number of 60 students enter the bachelor's program of Asian Studies Department every year, where students choose one of 5 languages: Korean, Japanese, Chinese, Turkish, and Arabic for his or her major language. A Korean program is chosen by around 16 or 20 students which composes a quite big portion of Asian Studies Department program at University of Latvia. A Korean program at the University of Latvia is maintained mostly by visiting professors from Korea Foundation. In 2016, the Center for Korean Studies was established at the Faculty of Humanities of the University of Latvia with the grant from Academy of Korean Studies. The Center for Korean Studies at the University of Latvia is engaged in projecting and administrating a series of academic activities to promote Korean studies, not only in Latvia, but also in the Baltic region. The main activity of the center is the organization of international conferences, seminars, and symposiums on Korean humanities and the publication of Korea-related books in Latvia. For now, 2 volumes were published out of the series of Korean language for Latvians, Koreashwaloda Latvian, which are available to purchase at bookstores in Latvia. It's one example. I hope you might have seen this book in Latvia before you came to Korea. And the third and the last volume of the series is expected to be published in spring. And a new series of Korean grammar is now in preparation as well. The first volume of this series will be published hopefully before summer. And recently, an introductory book on Korean studies, the Introduction to Korean Spirituality, was also published by the University of Latvia Press. The new standard and the new standard regulation for transcription of Korean personal and place names in Latvian was prepared by our center. Because I was just head of center, because I quite accustomed to address our center. By the center in cooperation with the National Agency of Latvian Language, which will be unveiled officially in January. The Baltic Association of Korean Studies was established in 2018 by the initiative of the Center for Korean Studies of University of Latvia. The head of the King Sejong Institute at Mykolas Romelis University in Vilnius was elected for the first president of the association. In 2017, Korean Studies program was included into the master's program of Orientalistics, where 2 students graduated last year, and 3 students are expected to graduate this year. Therefore, very hopefully, Korean Studies program will be administrated by the own manpower educated and trained at the University of Latvia. We sincerely hope that they will make a huge contribution to the international relationship and also a relationship between Korea and Latvia. I heard that one graduate student will be working at the Embassy of Korea in Riga from this spring. Since the King Sejong Institute was established at Riga Technical University in 2016, hundreds of students are voluntarily coming to learn Korean language. And a Korean program is also offered as a major program at the Department of Intercultural Communication, Academy of Culture in Korea. And I also sincerely hope that our Korean students will be given more opportunities to learn Latvia. As far as I know, Latvian lecture will be included in a course of Minerva faculty of the university as the liberal art, just like Cedalia, is part in Latvian University from this spring. So if you wish, you will have great opportunity to learn Latvia with me.
In the same manner, therefore, even in Korea, we will promote more Latvian studies and Baltic studies. Therefore, making some balance between Korea and Latvia. For this, though a little bit short, an hour discussion, it's not full discussion, but I think quite enough. We shared our ideas. So what is left behind is that we work together.
Dear students, dear professors, thank you for this meeting. We appreciate it a lot. It is truly a pleasure to come to this university, cradle of great minds and cradle of great future. Thank you for this meeting.
Thank you. One last thing is to take photo together. Wait, take it.